In order to make sourdough bread, you need to have a sourdough starter. It's the most important part of the recipe. It's what gives it flavor and bread spring or rise. If you don't have one, see the link above and I show you how to make one. The first step in this recipe is to make a levain, which is basically freshly fed starter with precise measurements for the recipe. To make a levain, add 20 grams of your starter to a clean container. I use a levain so I can modify part of my starter with different ratios of flour and water and different flours than my starter has. To the starter, add 20 grams of all-purpose and 20 grams of whole wheat and 40 grams of bottled water heated about 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Stir it really well, and I like to use a coffee filter so that on top so that it'll vent. Mark the time and the level. In this case, it's 8 a.m. I'll have a timeline below based on an 8 a.m. start time. It needs to rest at about 80 degrees Fahrenheit in a proofing box or someplace warm. I use my oven with the door open slightly and the light on. And you'll leave it in there between 4.5 and 5 hours. The next step is called autolyze. Start this 3 hours after you started your levain. Whisk together 365 grams of bread flour and 65 grams of whole wheat flour. Then add 315 grams of bottled or filtered water at 90 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit for 80% hydration. Now use 300 grams for 77% hydration if you're new to this. I like using a dough whisk, and be sure to get all of the flour hydrated. The dough becomes more stretchy, less likely to tear when folding, and also helps the bread expand faster and easier in the oven, giving more open crumb and oven spring. Place this in the same location as the levain until the levain is finished resting. Oh, it's been about 4.5 hours and my levain is ready. It has more than doubled in size and is starting to cave on top a little bit. If yours has not, let it rest some more. Add 10 grams of warm water to the levain, about 80 degrees. This helps remove all of the levain from your container and hydrates the dough. It makes it easier to work with. Spread the levain around on the dough and then poke your fingers in, getting the levain inside of the dough, and then go ahead and mix up pretty well for the next couple minutes. Now you're going to let that rest for 30 minutes at about 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So I just put it right back in the oven with the light on. Alright, it's been 30 minutes. So now it's time to sprinkle 10 grams of fine sea salt over the top. Then sprinkle 10 grams of filtered or bottled water heated to about 80 degrees to help hydrate and mix in the salt. I'm using one hand because I need to keep the bowl in view of the camera. But you probably should use both hands and do it really well. You want to mix this for a couple of minutes at least until thoroughly mixed in. You can keep it in the same bowl, but I use a larger see-through so I can see the progress and allows more room for folds. This is the start of the bulk fermentation, which will take 5 hours. Place it back to the 80-degree environment. After the first 15 minutes of bulk fermentation, perform the first of 5 folds. Add a little water to a bowl to wet your fingertips. Use very little water as it will add to the hydration. Just go around the dough and you just pick it from underneath and stretch it over without tearing it. And you're going to do that several times. It will get a little more difficult as time goes on because it's starting to form gluten. And when it gets pretty tough, stop folding because you don't want to tear it. After this fold, let it rest at 80 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 minutes and perform the second fold. Then do folds 3 more times, 30 minutes apart. This will add up to 2 hours of folds. I wanted to show you the 5th and final fold. Notice how smooth the dough looks. There are bubbles starting to form around the edges, and as I fold, I notice more bubbles forming within the dough itself, and I'm folding bubbles on top of bubbles. It's really, so everything's working the way it should. Be very gentle with it. Flip it over, and then I do a coil fold at the end here, just using 2 fingers, and then place it down. Now I'm going to let it rest for the remainder of the bulk fermentation, 3 hours. Okay, it's time for pre-shaping. It's helpful to have a bench scraper, a bowl scraper, and be sure you have some flour set aside. Use the bowl scraper to loosen up the edges to help remove the dough to an unfloured surface. Now, what I'm going to do here is kind of a similar shaping method that I'll use for the final shaping. The difference is I'm going to be a little looser with it, a little more forgiving. Take the top side, fold it across towards myself. Take the sides and fold them over. And then finally the side nearest me and fold it over, and then gently flip seam side down. Then I use the bench scraper to shape it into a ball shape. It doesn't have to be perfectly round. It doesn't have to be tight. And let it rest for 20 minutes, uncovered. In the meantime, prepare the banneton by liberally sprinkling flour into it. I only use flour. Some people use rice flour or a combination of the two. All right, it's been 20 minutes. Now for the final shaping. Sprinkle a little flour on top of the dough. Then you want to flip it over, seam side up, and gently take the area nearest you and pull it across about halfway to 3/4 way up. Take a side and fold it over, stretch out a little bit if necessary, and do the same for the other side. Now take the top side and fold it down towards you. Now this is different than the pre-shape. What you're going to do is take the side nearest you again and fold it all the way over, and then gently flip it seam side down. Flour your hands a little bit and use the bench scraper, a combination of the bench scraper in your hand, to form it into a ball. Then you want to flour your hands up a little bit, and this time what you're going to do is you're going to tighten it up by tucking your fingers underneath and pulling it towards you, dragging it towards you, and then turning it a little bit. And then again, pulling it towards you and then turning it. And it starts forming a real nice little tight dough ball. And you start noticing a lot of bubbles. Then gently place it inside the banneton, seam side up. Now I'm going to place it in a plastic bag. Then I like to put a little tea towel on it because I don't want the condensation from the dough to drip back down to the dough. And rubber bands, you tighten it up or just zip it, and then place it in the refrigerator for 15 hours. All right, my dough's been in the refrigerator now for 15 hours and I'm ready to bake. Place the Dutch oven in the oven. I use a Lodge combo cooker. And preheat your oven to 500 degrees Fahrenheit for 45 minutes. It's been 45 minutes. Carefully remove the Dutch oven. Be sure to use gloves rated 500 degrees or more. If you use a taller Dutch oven, use the parchment paper method. I'll have a video on that later. All right, I'm just sprinkling some flour. It's just regular flour on top of the dough, which is the bottom of the dough, and in the Dutch oven, bottom. Carefully place it. By the way, this tape's speeded up, so don't move this fast with this kind of heat. And then score it. You don't want it to pop out where it wants to. You want it to expand where you want it to. Set the timer for 20 minutes. Okay, it's been 20 minutes. Now remove the lid and reduce the temperature to 450 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 minutes. Look how much it rose. That looks really nice. Good spring. Okay, 450 degrees now for 15 minutes. It's been 15 minutes and I'm all done. All I have to do now is let it cool down for, well, I let it go for about 2 hours, get room temperature. Now look at that crumb. It is beautiful. Enjoy. Please leave comments below. If you found this video helpful, useful, please subscribe and like it, share it. Thanks for watching and have a great day.